First contact in the rust fields. The metallic sand of Helios 9 whispered against Sarah Chen's salvage suit as she trudged through the perpetual twilight of the rust fields. Towers of corroded machinery rose like ancient monoliths around her, their shadows stretching endlessly across the copper-colored dunes. The planet's twin suns hummed low on the horizon, casting everything in a burnt orange glow that made depth perception treacherous. Sarah checked her helmet's heads-up display, confirming the energy signature that had drawn her attention. After 15 years as a salvage pilot, she'd learned to trust her instincts, and something about this reading was different. It wasn't the usual electromagnetic residue from abandoned mining equipment or the ghostly remnants of old comm arrays. This signature pulsed with a rhythm that seemed almost alive. Log entry 2189-7. She spoke into her suit's recorder. Tracking anomalous energy reading in Sector 47. Possible class as salvage, though pattern suggests pre-colonial tech. She paused, watching the signal strengthen. Could be looking at first-wave artifacts. If I'm right, this could finally be my ticket off this rust bucket. The energy signature led her to the base of a massive dune. As she approached, glints of an unfamiliar metal began to emerge from the rusty sand. Sarah activated her suit's scanning array, and a holographic overlay revealed the true scale of what lay buried before her. A ship, but unlike any she'd ever encountered. Its hull curved in impossible ways, as if it had been grown rather than built. "Holy shit," she whispered, triggering her suit's excavation protocols. Small drones emerged from her backpack, beginning to clear away the centuries of accumulated sand. This isn't first wave. This isn't even human. Hours passed as Sarah and her drones worked to expose the vessel. The ship's hull was covered in intricate patterns that seemed to shift when viewed directly, forcing her to rely on her peripheral vision to make sense of them. Near what she assumed was the stern, she discovered what appeared to be an entry point, a spiral opening that responded to her proximity by emitting a soft purple glow. Sarah hesitated. Unauthorized contact with alien artifacts was a serious offense under colonial law. The proper procedure would be to log the find, place a claim beacon, and wait for the authorities. But claim beacons attracted attention, and in the rust fields, that usually meant corporate salvage teams who would swoop in with their lawyers and leave the original finder with nothing but bills for processing fees. "Sometimes it's better to ask forgiveness than permission," she muttered, activating her suit's recording systems. If things went bad, at least there'd be evidence of what happened. The spiral opening dilated as she approached, revealing a corridor that seemed to be made of flowing crystal. The interior of the ship defied conventional geometry. Corridors branched and merged in ways that should have been impossible, yet somehow felt natural. Sarah's suit sensors indicated breathable atmosphere and standard gravity, though she kept her helmet sealed. The energy signature was stronger now, pulling her deeper into the vessel. She found them in what appeared to be a medical bay. 3 crystalline chambers, each containing a humanoid figure that seemed to be composed of living light. Their forms were vaguely feminine, with elongated limbs and features that reminded Sarah of ancient Earth statues. Unlike statues, however, these beings pulsed with internal energy, their light dimming and brightening in a synchronized rhythm. Stasis pods, Sarah realized, approaching the nearest chamber. The being inside was smaller than the others, perhaps younger. Its light flickered erratically, suggesting the stasis system was failing. Without intervention, these creatures, whatever they were, would likely die. Sarah pulled up the ship's schematics that her suit had been mapping. The vessel's systems were deteriorating, power failing across multiple sectors. She estimated the stasis pods had maybe hours left before complete failure. The right thing to do would be to call it in, wait for experts who knew how to handle first contact situations. But as she watched the youngest being's light flutter like a candle in the wind, Sarah thought about her own lost family, about the corporate bureaucrats who had decided a proper rescue attempt would be too costly after the mining accident that claimed them. Some choices transcended laws and regulations. Log entry 2189 to 7 addendum. She spoke clearly. I'm about to violate approximately 15 colonial statutes. For the record, I'm doing this of my own free will, fully aware of the consequences. She approached the control panel beside the stasis chambers, her suit's systems already working to decipher its operation. Sometimes being human means breaking the rules. The youngest being's chamber activated first, the crystalline surface becoming fluid. As it opened, the creature's light brightened, coalescing into a more solid form. Large, opalescent eyes opened, meeting Sarah's gaze with an intelligence that transcended species barriers. A voice echoed in her mind, not in words but in concepts and emotions. Gratitude, fear, urgency. It's okay, Sarah said, not knowing if she could be understood, but hoping her tone would convey her intentions. I'm going to help you. All of you. She began the revival sequence for the other chambers. I'm Sarah Chen, and I'm getting you out of here. The being's light pulsed in response, and Sarah felt a wave of information wash over her. Images of a vast civilization of light and crystal, of a war that consumed worlds, of a desperate flight to preserve what remained of their species. They were called the Lumari, and they had been sleeping in these ruins for over 1,000 years. As the other chambers began their revival sequences, Sarah's suit sensors detected approaching vehicles, other salvagers, drawn by the energy signatures of the awakening Lumari. She had minutes at most before she had company. Change of plans, she said, helping the young Lumari to its feet. Its body was surprisingly solid despite appearing to be made of light, and it moved with graceful uncertainty after its long sleep. We need to move fast. My ship's not far, and I know some places where we can hide while your friends wake up properly. The Lumari communicated its understanding, its light dimming to make it less visible. As Sarah led it toward the exit, she felt its fear of being found, of being studied and dissected by humans who wouldn't understand or care about its significance. But underneath that fear was something else, hope, sparked by her willingness to help. Don't worry, Sarah assured it as they hurried through the crystal corridors. I may be just a salvage pilot, but I'm pretty good at disappearing when I need to. She paused at a junction, checking her sensors. And something tells me you and your friends have a few tricks of your own. The young Lumari's light pulsed in what Sarah somehow knew was agreement. Together, they moved through the ancient ship, two beings from vastly different worlds, united by circumstance and the universal desire to survive. Behind them, the other Lumari were beginning to wake, and ahead lay a future neither of them could predict. But for now, in the eternal twilight of the rust fields, Sarah Chen had found something far more valuable than any salvage. A chance to make a difference, to save lives instead of merely scavenging among the dead. As they emerged into the copper-colored dunes, she smiled behind her helmet. Sometimes the best discoveries weren't things at all, but the moments that changed everything. The awakening. Sarah's salvage ship, the Second Chance, drifted silently through the asteroid belt of the Helios system. From the outside, it looked like just another piece of space debris, its hull deliberately weathered and marked with fake registration numbers that changed every few days. But inside, something extraordinary was taking place. In what had once been the cargo of old, three beings of light and crystal were beginning to truly awaken from their millennia-long sleep. Sarah watched through the reinforced observation window as the youngest Lumari, who had somehow communicated that its name was Nova, helped its elders adjust to consciousness. Ship's log, private entry. Sarah spoke softly. It's been 3 days since we escaped the rust fields. The corporate hunters missed us by less than an hour. I've never seen Helios 9 control so worked up. They're calling it the largest unauthorized salvage incident in colonial history. She smiled grimly. If they only knew. The elder Lumari were named Celestia and Aurora, though Sarah suspected these were approximations their language translated into concepts her mind could grasp. Where Nova's light was a soft silver blue, Celestia glowed with the intensity of a white dwarf, and Aurora shifted through spectrums Sarah's eyes couldn't fully process. A gentle chime indicated Nova wanted to enter the observation room. Sarah pressed the access panel, and the young Lumari glided in, its light dimmed to a comfortable level. Over the past few days, they'd developed a crude form of communication. Part gesture, part emotional resonance, and part direct mental exchange that left Sarah with mild headaches. "Your elders," Sarah gestured through the window. "Are they recovering well?" Nova's light pulsed in affirmation, but with undertones of concern that Sarah could feel radiating from its crystalline form. Images formed in Sarah's mind, vast libraries of crystal, containing the accumulated knowledge of the Lumari civilization. The stasis hadn't just preserved their bodies, it had protected their collective memory, the history and science of an entire species. "That's why you were chosen," Sarah realized, the pieces falling into place. "You're not just refugees, you're an arc." Nova's form brightened in confirmation, then projected a series of images that made Sarah's breath catch. Worlds transformed by Lumari technology, cities that merged seamlessly with their environments, ships that could fold space itself. But with each achievement came shadows. Other races who coveted their knowledge, wars fought over their discoveries, and finally, a desperate plan to preserve what remained. The moment was interrupted by a proximity alert. Sarah rushed to the bridge, Nova flowing beside her. A long-range scan showed a corporate hunter vessel, methodically sweeping the asteroid field with energy detection arrays. "They're tracking your energy signatures," Sarah explained, already plotting evasive maneuvers. "Your awakening must have left a trail they can follow." Nova's light dimmed further, and Sarah felt its guilt. But then something unexpected happened. Celestia and Aurora entered the bridge, their combined presence filling the room with brilliant light. Before Sarah could warn them about being detected, they raised their crystalline arms in perfect synchronization. The ship's sensors went wild. Energy patterns Sarah had never seen before rippled through the hull, and for a moment, everything seemed to shift sideways in a way her human mind couldn't quite process. When her vision cleared, the hunter vessel's signals were gone. "What did you do?" Sarah asked, checking her instruments. According to every sensor, the second chance no longer existed. At least, not in any way human technology could detect. Aurora communicated next, showing Sarah images of light bending around objects, of energy being redirected and reformed. They had essentially wrapped the ship in a field that made it invisible not just to sight, but to all forms of detection. It was Lumari stealth technology, perfected over millennia. "That's incredible," Sarah breathed. "But it must take enormous energy to maintain." She could see how much the effort had drained the elder Lumari, their lights noticeably dimmer. Nova confirmed her suspicion, adding that they needed a safe place to recover and properly awaken their stored knowledge. Sarah brought up a star chart, indicating a location deep in the asteroid field. An abandoned mining station she'd discovered years ago, its existence erased from official records after a corporate accident. "It's not much," she said, "but it's defensible, hidden, and the raw materials there might help you rebuild your strength." She looked at each of the Lumari in turn. "I know you have every reason not to trust humans after everything you've seen, but I promise you, this place will be safe." The three Lumari communicated among themselves in pulses of light too rapid for Sarah to follow. Finally, Celestia approached her, extending a crystalline hand. When Sarah took it, memories flooded her mind, but not of the past. These were visions of possible futures, humans and Lumari working together, sharing knowledge, building something new from the ashes of the old. "Ship's log, addendum," Sarah said later as they navigated through the densest part of the asteroid field. "I always thought I was running away from something. From the corporations, from my past, from everything I lost. But maybe I was actually running towards something. Maybe we all were." Nova stood beside her at the controls, its light synchronized with the ship's new energy patterns. In the cargo hold below, Celestia and Aurora had begun the delicate process of accessing their stored knowledge, preparing to share it with their young companion, and perhaps with humanity itself. As the second chance approached the hidden station, Sarah felt a weight lift from her shoulders. For the first time since losing her family, she was part of something larger than herself. The station grew larger in the view screen, its abandoned corridors waiting to be filled with light once more. But in the depths of space behind them, corporate hunters continued their search, their sensors growing more sophisticated with each passing day. And somewhere in the vast database of Lumari knowledge, a truth waited to be discovered, one that would change everything Sarah thought she knew about the universe and humanity's place in it. The awakening had begun, but it was only the first step on a journey that would reshape the future of two species. As Nova's light pulsed encouragingly beside her, Sarah allowed herself to smile. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Echoes of the past. The abandoned mining station groaned beneath the weight of memories. Its cavernous halls, once filled with the sounds of industrial machinery, now resonated with the soft hum of crystalline technology. In the months since their arrival, the Lumari had transformed the central chamber into something that defied human engineering. A vast archive of living crystal that pulsed with stored knowledge. Sarah sat cross-legged on a modified observation platform, watching Nova interface with the archive. The young Lumari's light rippled with each new piece of information absorbed, creating patterns that reminded Sarah of auroras dancing across ancient Earth's skies. "Personal log," she whispered, her voice barely disturbing the chamber's reverent atmosphere. "The Lumari continue to amaze me. They don't just store information, they live it. Every memory, every piece of technology, every moment of their history, it's all preserved in what they call the Luminous Archive." Below, Celestia and Aurora guided Nova through another memory sequence. Their combined light created three-dimensional images in the air, scenes from their civilization's past. Sarah watched, transfixed, as entire cities of crystal rose and fell, as ships that looked like frozen starlight traversed impossible distances. But today, something was different. Nova's light patterns suddenly shifted to a deep, troubled purple. The projected images became darker, showing scenes of destruction. Vast armadas of angular ships, their hulls black as space itself, descending upon Lumari worlds. The Void Hunters. Aurora's thoughts resonated in Sarah's mind. Over their weeks together, the elder Lumari had refined their ability to communicate with her. They came without warning, without mercy. The images shifted again, showing the Lumari's desperate defense of their homeworld. Their advanced technology proved formidable, but the Void Hunters were relentless. For every ship they destroyed, two more appeared. "We thought we were alone in our galaxy," Celestia added, her light dimming with sorrow. "We had spent millennia exploring, building, creating. But we never looked into the spaces between galaxies. We never imagined." The archive showed the final days of the war. The Lumari, realizing they couldn't win through conventional means, initiated what they called the Great Preservation. Their most advanced minds, their most crucial knowledge, their very essence was encoded into crystalline matrices and hidden throughout the universe. "We were not the only ones," Aurora revealed. "There were others, dozens of civilizations across multiple galaxies. All fell to the Void Hunters. All attempted to preserve themselves in some way." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. But why? What did these Void Hunters want? The answer came in a series of fractured images, glimpses of technology so advanced it appeared magical, of beings transformed into pure energy, of the very fabric of space-time being manipulated like clay. "They seek ascension," Nova communicated, its young mind struggling to process the ancient memories. "They believe that by harvesting advanced civilizations, by stealing their knowledge and technology, they can transcend physical existence itself." A warning alarm cut through the chamber's ethereal atmosphere. Sarah rushed to the security console she'd installed, her heart racing. "We've got company. 3 ships just entered the asteroid field's outer perimeter. Energy signatures match corporate hunters." The Lumari dimmed their lights instantly, but Sarah noticed something troubling. The archive, despite their best efforts to shield it, was emitting traces of energy that their pursuers might detect. "They're getting better at tracking us," Sarah muttered, bringing up the sensor feeds. "Each time we encounter them, their technology improves. It's almost as if—" She froze, a horrible realization dawning. "They're learning from you, aren't they? Every time they get close, their sensors pick up fragments of Lumari tech." Celestia's light pulsed in confirmation. "The knowledge cannot be fully contained. It seeks to grow, to spread. It is both our greatest strength and our greatest vulnerability." Sarah began powering up the station's meager defenses, old mining lasers repurposed as weapons, electromagnetic shields that might buy them a few minutes at best. But as she worked, a memory surfaced, one she'd spent years trying to forget. "I was 12 when the corporate hunters killed my family," she said quietly, her hands moving across the controls with practiced efficiency. "It wasn't personal. My parents were independent researchers who discovered something in an old colony ship, something the corporations wanted. When they wouldn't sell, well," she took a deep breath. "The official report called it a tragic accident." Nova moved closer, its light taking on a comforting blue hue. The young Lumari had become increasingly attuned to human emotions, especially Sarah's. It shared an image, a memory of its own people facing loss, showing Sarah that grief transcended species. "The hunters are still an hour out," Sarah announced, checking the sensors again. "We need to make a decision. We can try to run, but with the archive active, they'll just track us again. Or we stay and fight." Aurora finished her thought. The elder Lumari's light intensified, taking on an almost martial aspect. "We have hidden long enough." Celestia moved to the archive's central column. "There is another option. The knowledge you've seen, Sarah, is only the surface. There are deeper memories, more powerful technologies. Things we sealed away because they were too dangerous, too unpredictable." "Like what?" Sarah asked, even as alarms indicated the hunter ships were moving faster than expected. The archive pulsed, and a new image formed. A ship unlike anything Sarah had seen before. It wasn't built or grown, but rather existed in a state of constant transformation, its crystalline structure adapting to any situation. "The Starweaver," Aurora explained, "our last and greatest creation. A vessel capable of not just traveling through space, but rewriting it. We never completed it. The risks were too great. But we have something the original builders didn't," Nova interjected, its light bright with excitement. "We have you, Sarah. Human intuition combined with Lumari technology. Together, we might succeed where our ancestors failed." Sarah looked at the approaching hunter ships, then at the complex schematics floating before her. It was insane, attempting to build an experimental ship while under attack. But as she studied the design, she realized parts of it seemed familiar, like echoes of something she'd always known but never understood. "How long?" she asked. "With all four of us working together, using the archive's full power." Celestia calculated, "Perhaps 40 minutes. But Sarah, you must understand. Interfacing with technology this advanced, it will change you. The process cannot be reversed." Another alarm. The hunters were accelerating again, now just 45 minutes away. Sarah thought about her parents, about their belief that knowledge should be free, about their refusal to bow to corporate control. She thought about the void hunters lurking between galaxies, waiting to harvest civilizations. "My life changed the moment I found you," she said, stepping onto the archive's central platform. "Might as well make it official." The Lumari moved into position around her, their lights beginning to synchronize. As the archive's energy flowed into her, Sarah felt her consciousness expanding, touching aspects of reality she'd never known existed. Above them, through the station's viewports, the hunter ships approached like wolves closing in on their prey. But this time, their prey was ready to fight back. Breaking point. Time seemed to flow like liquid crystal around Sarah as the transformation took hold. Every nerve ending sang with new awareness, her consciousness expanding to encompass spectrums of reality she'd never known existed. Through eyes that were no longer entirely human, she watched the hunter ships approach, their hulls now appearing shabby and crude compared to the elegant mathematics of Lumari design. 9 minutes until they're within weapons range, she announced, her voice carrying harmonic undertones that made the station's crystals resonate. Where her hands touched the archive's control surface, patterns of light spread like frost on glass. The Starweaver's primary matrix is at 60% integration. Nova worked beside her, its light perfectly synchronized with Sarah's new energy signature. The young Lumari had adapted to their hybrid technology with remarkable speed, intuiting solutions that even the elders hadn't considered. Sarah, Celestia called from her position at the power distribution node. Your vital signs are exceeding expected parameters. The human body wasn't designed to channel this much energy. A wave of pain crashed through Sarah's transformed nervous system, proving Celestia's point. But there was no time for caution. The hunter ships had deployed their first wave of detection probes. Ugly, mechanical things that clawed their way through space toward the station. Approaching vessels, this is Colonial Security Force Interceptor Alpha. A voice crackled over the emergency channel. You are harboring illegal salvage and fugitives from corporate justice. Power down your systems and prepare for boarding. Sarah laughed, the sound creating ripples of light in the air. Corporate justice. Is that what they're calling it now? She opened a channel, letting them see her transformed appearance. Come and get us. The hunter's response was immediate and violent. Energy beams designed to disable standard chip systems struck the station's shields, only to be absorbed and redirected through the crystalline network Sarah and the Lumari had created. Starweaver at 75%, Nova reported, its light pulsing with effort. But the spatial matrix is still unstable. We need more time. A direct hit rocked the station, sending cascades of sparks through older systems that hadn't been fully converted. Aurora's light flickered as she maintained their defensive screen, but Sarah could sense the elder Lumari's strength wavering. Time to show them what we've learned, Sarah decided. She reached deeper into the archive's knowledge, finding patterns of energy that could be woven into weapons. With a thought, she transformed a section of the station's hull into crystalline cannons that fired beams of coherent light. The hunters scattered, clearly unprepared for such advanced technology. But their surprise didn't last long. The lead ship launched what looked like conventional missiles, until they split apart mid-flight, revealing cores of salvaged Lumari crystal. They're using fragments they collected from our energy trail, Celestia realized, horror rippling through her light. Corrupting our own technology to use against us. The hybrid missiles struck with devastating force. Areas of the station that hadn't been fully converted began to break apart. Warning signals flooded Sarah's enhanced senses, hull breaches, system failures, power fluctuations. 89%. Nova called out, desperately working to complete the Starweaver's integration. But the containment field is collapsing. Sarah made a decision. Aurora, Celestia, divert all power from life support and artificial gravity to the containment field. I'll handle our defense. Sarah, no. Nova's light flared with concern. Your body can't channel that much energy alone. It will kill you. Another blast rocked the station. Through the crystalline network, Sarah felt Aurora's pain as shrapnel from the deteriorating hull tore through her light form. The elder Lumari's glow dimmed dangerously. I'm not entirely human anymore, Sarah reminded them, already reaching for the station's full power output. And I'm done watching people I care about die while I do nothing. She opened herself fully to the archive's power. Pain beyond anything she'd imagined seared through her transformed body, but with it came understanding. She saw the hunter ships as they truly were, not just their physical forms, but the crystalline mathematics that defined their existence in space-time. With that understanding came power. Sarah reached out with hands that now blazed like newborn stars. grasping the very fabric of reality around the nearest hunter ship. With a thought that felt like tearing steel, she twisted. The hunter ship distorted, its hull folding in on itself as local spacetime warped. The crew had just enough time to scream before their vessel collapsed into a point of infinite density, leaving nothing but scattered radiation. Holy shit, one of the remaining hunters breathed over the still-open channel. What are they doing? What is she? Sarah turned her attention to them, knowing she had seconds at most before the power burning through her killed her. Through eyes that now saw in 11 dimensions, she watched them retreat, their engines straining at maximum thrust. 97%. Nova called out. Sarah, please, let go of the power before. Aurora's warning cry came too late. A final hunter missile, cleverly hidden in the debris field, detonated against the station's weakened hull. The explosion breached the archive's containment field, releasing a flood of raw energy. Sarah felt herself flying backward, her connection to the power severed. The last thing she saw before darkness took her was Nova's light reaching for her, trying to catch her as she fell. Then everything went white. Sarah floated in a void of pure consciousness. Had she died? Was this what ascension felt like? But no, she could still feel Nova's presence, still sense the desperation in the young Lumari's attempts to reach her. With tremendous effort, she opened eyes that were somehow both human and something more. She lay in a crystalline chamber that hadn't existed minutes before. Around her, the station had been transformed. Or rather, it had transformed itself. The Starweaver, Celestia's voice came from everywhere and nowhere. It's alive. Sarah sat up, marveling at her changed body. Her skin had taken on a subtle crystalline quality, refracting light in impossible ways. But more than the physical changes, she felt different inside. The knowledge she'd absorbed from the archive had rewritten her on a fundamental level. 100% integration, Nova reported joyfully, its light embracing her. Sarah, you did it. Your human ability to improvise, to adapt, it was the key to stabilizing the Matrix. Through the Starweaver's sensors, Sarah observed what remained of the Hunter fleet retreating at maximum speed. She knew they would return with reinforcements, with weapons designed to counter what they'd seen today. But by then, she and her Lumari family would be long gone. Where to now? She asked, reaching out to touch the living crystal walls of their new home. The ship responded to her touch like a purring cat, eager to explore. Aurora's light brightened with purpose. There are others out there. More preservation archives scattered across the galaxy. And beyond that, the Void Hunters. Sarah finished. She stood, her transformed body moving with inhuman grace. They'll come for this galaxy eventually. We need to be ready. Nova moved to her side, its light harmonizing with her new energy signature. We'll face them together, human and Lumari, technology and spirit, logic and intuition. Sarah smiled, watching stars streak past the Starweaver's crystalline viewport. She had lost her humanity, or at least transformed it into something new. But in exchange, she had gained a family, a purpose, and a future filled with infinite possibilities. The breaking point had come and gone, leaving something stronger in its wake. New dawn. The Starweaver moved through space like a living dream, its crystalline structure constantly adapting to the currents of reality around it. 3 months had passed since their escape from the mining station, and Sarah was still discovering new aspects of both the ship and herself. Standing on the observation deck, though standing was an approximate term for someone whose body now existed partially in other dimensions, she watched Nova practice manipulating space-time. The young Lumari had grown tremendously in their time aboard the Starweaver, its light now strong enough to create micro-wormholes at will. Your form is improving, Sarah noted, her voice carrying harmonics that made the ship's crystal walls sing. But remember to account for quantum entanglement when you fold space, even a microscopic miscalculation cold. A small explosion of light interrupted her lesson as Nova's wormhole collapsed in on itself. The young Lumari's glow dimmed with embarrassment. Like that? Nova asked, causing Sarah to laugh, a sound that now created cascading patterns of luminescence in the air around her. Exactly like that. Don't worry. I destroyed half a deck when I was first learning. Sarah's transformed eyes, which could perceive multiple layers of reality simultaneously, caught sight of Aurora approaching through the ship's crystal lattice. The elder Lumari's light held an urgency that immediately commanded attention. "We found another archive," Aurora announced without preamble. The Starweaver detected its resonance pattern at the edge of the Carina Nebula. But we're not the only ones who found it. The ship's living walls projected a three-dimensional image of the region. A massive corporate fleet had gathered around a seemingly empty section of space. Empty, that is, to normal human sensors. But to Sarah's enhanced perception, the void blazed with familiar energy patterns. Preservation protocols, Celestia added, emerging from the ship's matrix where she'd been managing their long-range scans, like the ones that protected us for so long. This archive must belong to another species that faced the Void Hunters. Sarah studied the corporate fleet with eyes that could see through their hulls, analyzing their weapons and defenses. They've adapted their ships with the Lumari technology they scavenged. Look, crystalline power cores. Primitive, but functional. They're trying to brute force their way through the preservation field. "We can't let them access that archive," Nova declared, its light pulsing with determination. Who knows what knowledge it contains, what secrets of the universe they might corrupt. Sarah nodded, already reaching out to merge her consciousness more deeply with the Starweaver. The ship responded eagerly, its systems humming with potential energy. Plot an intercept course. But first, she focused her attention on a specific section of the ship's living crystal, transforming it into a communication array far more advanced than anything the corporations possessed. With a thought, she broadcast on all frequencies. "Attention all vessels near the Carina Nebula. This is Sarah Chen of the Starweaver." She let them see her transformed appearance, her crystalline skin refracting starlight, her eyes holding the wisdom of ages. "You're interfering with something you don't understand. Withdraw now, or face the consequences." The corporate fleet's response was predictably aggressive. Energy weapons powered up, targeting systems locked onto the space around them. Though the Starweaver's true position existed partially in other dimensions. "They never learn," Aurora sighed, her light taking on the harder edge that preceded combat. Sarah smiled, feeling the ship's power flow through her transformed body. "Actually, they do. That's the problem. Each encounter teaches them more about Lumari technology. We need to end this cycle." She reached into the archive of knowledge stored within her hybrid mind, finding a pattern she'd discovered but hadn't dared to use until now. "Nova, Aurora, Celestia, I need you to synchronize with me. What I'm about to try could either save us or tear a hole in the universe." The Lumari moved into position around her, their light merging with her energy field. Through their combined consciousness, Sarah began to weave space-time itself into new configurations. The corporate fleet fired, their advanced weapons burning paths through the void, paths that bent and twisted as reality itself refused to cooperate. "By the stars," Nova whispered, understanding Sarah's plan. "You're not just bending space. I'm rewriting the laws of physics in this region." Sarah confirmed, sweat crystallizing on her forehead from the effort. "Creating a bubble of space where their technology simply cannot function, where the very principles they rely on don't exist." The effect rippled outward from the Starweaver like a wave of pure mathematics. Corporate ships began to drift, their hybrid power cores unable to operate under the new laws of physics Sarah had temporarily imposed. Weapons powered down, shields failed, and panic spread through their ranks. "This is impossible," a corporate commander broadcast. "What are you?" "The future," Sarah replied simply. She turned her attention to the hidden archive, reaching out with senses that transcended normal space. And we're not alone. The preservation field protecting the ancient archive began to respond to their presence. Patterns of energy that had lain dormant for millennia awakened, recognizing something kindred in the Starweaver's hybrid nature. As the corporate fleet watched helplessly, a massive structure began to materialize, a city-sized complex of living crystal and light, its architecture unlike anything seen in the known galaxy. It's beautiful, Nova breathed, its light resonating with the ancient technology. Inside the newly revealed structure, something stirred. Beings of pure energy emerged, their forms similar to but distinct from the Lumari. They had preserved themselves differently, achieving a state of existence between matter and energy. We are the axiom. They communicated directly into the minds of everyone present. We have waited long for others who could bridge the gap between physical form and pure energy. The ones you call the Void Hunters drove us to this state, but in doing so, they taught us how to transcend without losing our essence. Sarah felt tears on her cheeks, tears that caught the light like diamonds. You found a middle path, like I did. As all must, the axiom agreed. The future belongs not to those who cling to one state of being, but to those who can adapt, who can find balance between what was and what could be. The corporate fleet began to retreat, their crews shaken by what they'd witnessed. Sarah let them go. They would spread the word of what happened here, and perhaps that would be enough to make others think twice before trying to seize power they weren't ready to understand. There are more archives out there, Celestia said, her light bright with hope. More species who chose preservation over extinction. And now we can wake them. Sarah finished, help them find their own paths forward. She turned to Nova, seeing in the young Lumari's light the same excitement she felt. The Void Hunters thought they could force ascension through conquest, but real evolution comes from choice, from understanding, from bringing different perspectives together. The Starweaver hummed around them, eager to continue its journey. Through its sensors, Sarah could feel other archives calling from distant stars, each one a piece of the universe's great puzzle, waiting to be understood. A new dawn, Aurora mused, watching the Axiom city pulse with ancient power. Not just for humanity, or for the Lumari, but for all who are ready to take the next step. Sarah reached out to touch the living crystal walls of their home, feeling the ship's joy at the adventures ahead. She had come so far from the lonely salvage pilot she'd once been, but she hadn't lost her humanity. She'd expanded it, grown into something that could bridge worlds and species. Well then, she said, a smile playing across her crystalline features as she looked at her family of light and energy. Shall we go wake up the rest of the universe? The Starweaver responded to her thought, its form shifting like a dream as it prepared to carry them into whatever wonders or dangers awaited among the stars. They had survived the breaking point, transcended their limitations, and found a new path forward. Together, they would forge a future that none of them could have imagined alone.